for one matter of business, hearing and consideration request of Union River Associates Realty Holdings LLC. They want a tax abatement. This is the property collectively known as the mall. And so, before we begin, for the record, I have 3 assessment appeals. They reference lots 128-7-ON-1, 128-7, and 128-4. Those will be part of the record. There's a packet, we got the difference in assessing valuation, 1919. Who prepared this?
That was from the assessor.
The assessor, do you care if that comes in?
No, I don't mind.
All right, that's going to be part of the record. And then also, before we begin here, we informally talking, gentleman here, I ran into him in the parking lot, just for the record. He just said hello, and we chit-chatted a little bit, nothing discussed substantively, just, he said we didn't get a clarification, and I said, well, we'll get one tonight. And so I want the record to know that I did speak to him briefly, but it wasn't anything about that small town politics, you get that. And then also, for the record, we have your original, we can all share this. In the preparations and in the thing, there was reference to an assessment provided to the assessor. Apparently, this is the assessor's report. It's appraisal of real property, Maine Coast Mall, 225 High Street, Ellsworth, Hancock County, Maine, Union River Associates Realty. It's done by Ted Small, for Ted Small, which is you.
Correct.
And we're going to make this part of the record. We'll share it, and then if we need copies, we will. But everyone can use the same one. And do you need to take this home and make copies and submit it, or is this your only one?
That is my copy, yeah. So.
If we could do this,
Yep.
we'll use this tonight, we'll all share it.
Yep.
I'd ask that you, when you get back to your office tomorrow, send a copy to Larry and the city,
Absolutely.
and that'll be part of the record, just so we're complete.
Absolutely.
Anything else that we need as far as documentation before we begin? Larry?
As a lead-up, I might just say that the prior year appeal did receive a reduction from the Board of Appeals.
Yep.
But that reduction was appealed to the State Property Tax Review Board, which is the next level instead of going to court, directly to court. Only commercial properties can go to the state.
Well, I'm gonna clarify that. Larry, why don't you sit down? Here's what I'd like to do. Ted, you're the appellant. I'm gonna ask you both to answer this one question. We just did this for this property. So can you both put on the record how you feel this is different from the last time we met? Okay, just so
Absolutely.
we can focus.
Yep. Would you like me to do that right now?
If you would,
Sure.
please, and Larry can respond, and then we'll go into your presentation. I just want to get zeroed here.
Okay, I think the focus on the distinction between, I'll call it the current year, that's the current appeal, and the prior year is, well, twofold. First and foremost was that we all went through the COVID pandemic, which had an impact on values. So that's what really our focus is going to be tonight. But I guess secondarily, but not unimportantly, as the assessor just mentioned, the board had granted an abatement for the prior year for just over $2 million for the mall building itself. That is not reflected in the April 1, 2020 assessment. So we would, obviously, we are here, our position is that we are entitled to the abatement as reflected in the appraisal, but we understand you folks have already basically spoken to that issue. But we think, at an absolute minimum, that there's no reason that the April 1, 2020 number should not reflect at least the abatement that had been granted for the prior year.
Well, regardless of your appeal to the
Yep.
state board, wouldn't those numbers that we put on that property apply to retroactive to the date that you appealed from and then prospectively forward?
That would certainly be our position.
Wouldn't it be our position too, that if we gave them an abatement for 2019 and those numbers, regardless of whether you appeal, those numbers should carry forward? That's what we ruled. City didn't appeal.
Well, it has been appealed to the State Property Tax Review Board. They could rule that the reduction that the local board granted was too much or not
Have
enough.
they ruled? Have
Yeah.
they ruled?
They have not, no. We haven't had a hearing yet.
Well, I agree with Jeff.
Listen, you
Carry forward
pay
what we've already
taxes on
said.
what we assign, and then if there needs to be adjustments down the road, you adjust it. That's fair as I can see it.
Well, I
And if the state says we did it wrong and jacks it back up, then well,
Well, and
bad
I,
appeal.
well, I also would say, I'd assume that if they were to do that, that also carries forward.
And if they reduce us even further, you get the drawdown that the state, I mean, we did this thing with the LL Bean building a few years ago where they came in and we gave them nothing and then the state board whacked us. Put it down, well, they spent 2.3 on the land and building, put $1 million into it, and we valued it at 3. And the state board said it was worth $1 million, so that's the way the numbers come out.
yeah, I'm not
They sold
arguing,
it for 2.5.
Yeah,
I'm not arguing your decision last year to abate last year's value of roughly $2 million. I'm just saying that the state board has not made a decision yet.
well, they're independent. Our numbers are for the city. We ruled. We gave you a number. That's what the assessed value should be. Does anybody disagree with us on this board? Our numbers, we like our numbers. And that's what you should be taxed on. And if you're being taxed on old numbers, that's wrong. Don't you agree, Larry? All in favor?
For that amount.
Because if we have to sit here
Yeah.
tonight and listen to that argument and then ask us, what do we assess this at? Well, we've already assessed it for 2019, and that carries forward. And you're still making them pay taxes on the higher value, that's just plain unfair. And I'm prepared to make a motion that we adopt our numbers and make them retroactive and progressively forward. And does that help your situation?
Yeah, I mean, that would further narrow our focus. We would like an opportunity to talk about the impact of COVID on, which is,
How
I
can
assume it's
anybody
only one.
rule any differently than that? We made a decision, you appeal, you're hoping it goes down at the state board is what I assume.
Right.
Why else would you appeal
Right.
it? I've never seen them come up, have you? Has anyone seen state board say that city did it too low?
I would think that's highly unlikely.
I don't think that's ever happened in the history of mankind.
They can deny an appeal.
Well, they can deny their appeal, and then you guys are stuck with the numbers we stuck you with, that we picked after a full hearing on the record. So why,
I don't disagree.
so why isn't
Having that same valuation reduced for this year's.
why aren't they
tax,
paying taxes on the numbers we gave and made a decision on?
Because it was appealed, it was not made final until the appeal process.
Well, let's assume that
is
the
finished.
state board says nothing, appeal denied. Do they get their money back? Do they still get taxed on the higher values instead of the values we gave?
If the State Property Tax Review Board says denied
Yeah.
to, that value would stand, that higher level of appeal will have made a decision.
I don't think that's right. I
And
think
that's
it-
not right.
I think if the state board simply denies the appeal without doing anything else, that means your numbers
Stays at your
stand.
level.
They should be taxed on our numbers until somebody tells us differently.
Who appealed to the state board? You?
We did, yep. Well, yeah. What's-
Because you didn't like the numbers we came up with?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're asking for a
Regardless.
lower number, but at least,
Regardless of why.
Yeah, up until
Sometimes the state
then-
board is commercially
Yeah.
really good to people.
our position is that unless and until that board says something else, your numbers are the ones that stand.
The only
I-
one that we've ever been zonked on was the LL Bean building by the state, as far as I know. And they really zonked it. Didn't they, Larry?
That was my first year here.
Right, I mean, we gave them a value and they, wow.
I think it was Carol Oliver who was the.
Yeah, we lived with it, but look, if we need to make it clear, this board made a decision and they should be taxed on the numbers that we came up with after a full hearing for 19 and 20. That's the only decision we can make tonight on that issue. Now, to the extent that they want to challenge numbers further for 2020, based on the numbers we gave for 19, we're here, and that's what we're going to focus on. Because regardless of what the state board does, that's what the city, that's the process. You get your process. I don't like the numbers. You appeal to a neutral board, which we are, and we evaluate it. And then, just because somebody appeals doesn't mean you get to stick it to them with the old numbers.
So what you're saying is if we granted the $2 million reduction for 2020,
April 1, 2020.
you still would not be satisfied?
Well, we still have our appeal pending seeking a lower number, that's correct. What I don't want to do, and I'm hearing from you folks you wouldn't want me to do, is spend tonight talking about why we think our appraisal is correct, going through all those details.
Right.
Except to the extent, and this doesn't really get into the appraisal much, just again, COVID, I think Mr. McIntyre will testify that they saw a revenue decrease of about 20% from 2019 to 2020, which had an impact on their value, which, obviously when you folks made your decision about April 1, 2019, that would not have been a factor at the time for that year. So that is a distinction. We've got our appraisal on the record just to preserve our rights with regard to that, but don't want to waste your time because you have already addressed those issues, the more broad general issues about the appraisal.
Well,
Does it put the city under any additional liability to grant the additional $2 million?
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
No, this is, the process is supposed to be, taxpayer comes in and says, assessor, you didn't do it right, and here's why. And he says no, his judgment can be appealed to us. And we tell Larry yes or no. And we told Larry we didn't like his numbers, and we reduced it.
Okay.
And that's the numbers that should go forward. And then to the extent that you want to come in here and say COVID zonked us in 20 and we'd like a further reduction, that's their right as a property taxpayer. Whether they're happy, satisfied, doesn't matter. Our job is to evaluate their facts and say, should we give them a reduced value?
They've still got an appeal on the number reduced number we gave.
Doesn't matter.
I know,
That- it
but
doesn't-
I'm just stating the facts.
They
still-
could get it reduced like Yellow Bean did.
They have an appeal on our number, and they're coming back here tonight and asking for a further reduction.
That's their right to.
Okay.
That's their right, because it's a different year.
No. the
They're not
numbers-
asking to change the
And
19
what
value.
you're saying is, the numbers
should
we're working with tonight should be the numbers that we gave
Yes.
them previously.
For
whatever
19.
date that was. So
Right.
these building values all need to be changed.
I think it was only one building value
Oh, it's
that
only
you
one
granted an
building.
abatement on previously, which
Right.
I
So
believe would have been.
I've got 3 building values here. Which one of those would change to reflect our
So
decision, previous decision?
you folks granted an abatement previously for lot 128-7.
Yep.
And it had been, get my exact numbers, that, for that year, April 1, 2019, it had been assessed, that building had been assessed at $11,951,700. You folks said that we were entitled to an abatement that would reduce the assessed value of that building to $9.5 million, which came out to an abatement of just over $2 million. So $2,001,700. And that was the extent of the abatement granted. So it was just really for that one building.
The value that I'm looking at on the sheet I have before me is $12,228,300.
That was the assessed value as of April 1, 2020.
Why for
What's the-
2020 didn't you use our 9.5?
Because of the appeal.
Well, you can't. You can't.
Well, it's my
Why
understanding.
would you even have levels of government to make decisions if what we say means nothing? And just ignore it. Yeah, I see 9.5, but I'm still gonna put it 12.2. That's wrong.
Okay.
The numbers should reflect that you should be being taxed at 9.5 for your building and 3 million for your land.
Yes, but how many times do you hear court cases where, that go up through and all the way up to the Supreme Court? The decisions through that process may be for or against, but there is one final board who makes that decision that overrides the decisions below it.
It's called on appeal, Larry, and then if the above court rules differently, we adjust the numbers. But until then, the numbers that we should be using are the numbers we gave.
The city's not the appellant at the state tax board.
No, it's not.
You didn't appeal our decision,
No,
so you're just arbitrarily going back to what you felt was right, which is not correct in my mind.
I didn't make the reduction. I did not disagree with it, but I didn't make it because of the appeal.
But you didn't make the appeal. The city did not appeal our decision. You should have left it at $9.5 million.
And I'm not arguing against what your decision was for the
Mhm.
prior year.
But your logic is flawed. If you were the appellant, you might have something to stand on. But the city, not you, but the city was not the appellant to the tax board in Augusta.
What was the exact amount that the appeal was granted for? It was 2 million and change?
It was, if my math is correct,
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer, so it might not be.
2 million.
2,001,700 was the amount of the abatement.
700. So that doesn't come down to $9,500 for the building.
No, isn't that what we put the building at, 9,500?
9.5
9.5 million.
Right.
Yeah.
And the land didn't change. We felt that was worth 3 million, so the total value was 14.5 million. And that's what you should be,
12.5 million.
12.5 million. That's,
So what's the 11,951,700?
That was what the assessed value was as of April 1, 2019.
and you want to lower our 9,500 to 8,100. And you also want to take
Well-
up the value of the land now.
Well, I just want to back up on that. Again, that's what our full-blown appraisal for April 1, 2020 says. But again, provided everybody agrees, we've preserved that argument for appeal if necessary. We might not need a separate appeal, we've already got one going.
Well, do you want,
But,
if we direct Larry to adjust the numbers to 9.5, and we table this for tonight until the board, you can always come back and argue that you've appealed, you've preserved.
yeah,
When we make a decision, I don't think would matter to you, because if we reduce it down to 8.1 million, the city's gonna refund you some money. And it seems to me the city's gonna have to refund you some money too, because I don't think they've appraised you right, or given you a reduction, period. You know?
I'm still having trouble getting up to 12 million.
The land is worth 3.
Yes.
We
I'm
s-
looking just at the building. The
We
building is
said the
reduced by-
building was worth
by
9.5.
2,100,000. In 9.5, that doesn't come up to 12.228.
No, it comes up to 12. The 12.228 was what I think Larry assessed it at
for 2020.
for 2020. He didn't reduce it to 9.5 like we said it was worth.
Okay, but even if it was reduced by
Did he-
2,100,000, you still,
The 11,951
You get
was the
11,600.
2019 value,
Correct,
and the 12,228,300 was the
you know,
2020
12,228.
value.
Correct.
Larry essentially treated the property
Your
as if,
original appeal was for the
until the
219.
appeal is decided, I'm
Yeah,
using my
correct.
old numbers.
Yeah. I just can't get these
Larry
figures to
increased the
come up
value.
to
Yeah, okay, I
that.
get
If the appeal was granted for $2,100,700,
$2,001,000.
or $1,000.
yeah, 2,001,700, yep.
Okay, 1,000, okay.
So how would you like to
We still get
proceed?
5.
If we direct
Or
Larry
one.
to redo the numbers to correspond, and you get
Yep.
I don't know if you paid your taxes yet or not,
Yeah, they were paid.
you should get a refund. The city has to refund you the money.
And you get this
Your
figure here,
appeal on
which is not that
2020,
figure.
and throwing in the COVID issue, if you want to do it tonight, we can. Or if
That's
you'd like to
Larry's
see
new
what the
assessment
state board does, and if they
Right.
reduce our numbers even further, maybe you don't need to go
But
there.
it was reduced.
We're
by
willing to do
2,100,000.
either choice for you
700.
at your
Yes.
pleasure.
1,700.
Give me just a minute with Mr. McIntyre.
Absolutely.
The assessment was that, we abated 2 million, got it down to,
1,700.
got it down to $9.5 million. That was our
So you're saying this
adjustment.
figure here was different last year than we
Larry,
took the
when,
million,
well,
See,
$1,000 off?
when's the state
yeah, he
board
went
meet?
up, actually went up from that to
When does the
that,
state board meet?
Okay,
after we set the value with that.
so why'd you go up?
I don't know.
It's really, really hard to say. There is no time
If
frame.
that was the assessment last year, why would
We
you
have
up?
been through a
know.
mediation process.
I can figure that out.
That's what I was just trying to,
So why did the value increase between 2019 and 2020?
Steve, let's wait till they come back so they can hear all our questions. We can pound Larry later. He's used to it.
I wish I would have been here for that LLB, because you know why that lost? There was no income approach prepared by the city. And assessors are supposed to consider all three approaches
Yeah.
tonight. And she had not considered, well, I guess there's, in the past, I don't think it's anywhere like that now, but in the past, if the assessor just said, well, I considered the income approach, I just didn't do it. That was old school. Now, if you say, to really consider the income approach, you've got to have some cap rates.
Wasn't LOB like 20 years ago? That was like,
Yeah,
because you had just,
yeah.
hey, while you were gone, I just asked Larry,
Settled it all?
no, when does the state board meet? And then I realized I probably shouldn't be asking questions. Steve started to ask questions about some other thing, and we stopped. I didn't want you to think we're having
Oh.
discussions behind your back.
Okay, no, that's fine, I appreciate that.
How would you like to proceed?
We think we'd be fine with if you're going to grant an abatement that's consistent with your prior
Yeah.
abatement for this year, but leave the remaining issue sort of open and pending. We're glad to do that, provided the assessor is, and then we obviously got the state appeal pending. It could very well be, however that one turns out, it makes any further proceedings
Let's
unnecessary.
just make a record that you've preserved your right to raise the issue once the state board rules. Whether it's 1 year, 6 months,
Okay.
2 years, you can come back in and challenge the numbers based on COVID. But going forward, from 2019, your assessed value should be the value this board picked and applied. And any assessment that was overdone has to be refunded. And do we need an order?
Yes, you're gonna.
I'll write something up
Okay.
and send it, and just, but that's pending an appeal, that's the way things work. And if if the state board zonks us,
So be it. and-
so be it.
But if they zonk us, so be it
And
too, you
then
know.
I'm gonna
it's-
indicate that your issue raising COVID for the 2020 tax period
Yeah,
is preserved and will be presented once we have state board done, and you want, and only if you wanna bring it back. You know, if you're happy with the numbers the way they are,
yep. Okay, that works for us.
and can you,
I agree.
Larry, you're good with that? I'll write something up now. I'm gonna send it in to Lori,
What should, Mr.
a
Chairman? we should-
proposed order to send to you, and all the board members. People, make notes. If I have typos or suggestions, send it back to me and copy everybody, and then we'll sign it.
Okay,
And that way, you're preserved and everything goes forward. Can you take your appraisal? It's not the usual thing we do, but it's your only copy.
And I can send you-
Please send
We
this
just
one
did.
in, and then we'll make the record.
We're gonna make
public.
that.
95.
Are you happy with this approach?
yes.
Larry, I know you're unhappy,
No,
which usually means a good decision for us.
I'm satisfied.
And I would indicate in the
Yeah.
future,
Taken
if
out
you would
to
like
one
to
of-
Well, no, you just
present
added, a few more
from your
percent.
office via Zoom, your client will be here, of course. I don't care. You're coming from Auburn?
Yes, yes,
I don't care if you appear by Zoom.
appreciate
It,
that.
it does, I'm a lawyer too.
Yeah, I
And I'm
know.
in 800 courtrooms and I love Zoom.
Yeah,
And now they're making me
Right.
show up in person. I had to drive to Dover today and back. And
Yeah.
then me Machias, it's just,
have you, I don't want to get us off topic too much, have you asked judges about witnesses participating by
Yeah.
Zoom? Have they allowed it?
yes,
Okay, because I've got a trial coming up.
experts. And, yeah, and all you gotta do is say, old and COVID problems.
That's what I was gonna say, I've got a couple witnesses who are old and have heart issues, and they don't wanna,
Which
Yeah.
judge?
So, getting
Um,
back
I
to
can't remember,
the
it's a business
question
court, I can't remember his name.
It used to be Nicholson.
It's
All
not
right,
him
I'm
anymore.
gonna,
Getting
Steve,
back to the question I asked when
Go-
the
go
guys
ahead.
were out.
go ahead, Steve.
Larry, in 2019, you had an assessed value of 11,951,700
Yeah, the assessed value
for the
is
building.
higher for this current year versus the previous year because of the convenient MD building being constructed. Where the prior year, the appeal was, as of April 1st, 2019, it was the bank still had not been tore down yet.
That's, okay, that's part of your presentation.
Right,
All right, if I indicate this is what the board's ordered and the appeal period for this will be stayed until we make a this is an interim order, stayed, you can appeal what we're doing at some point. I just,
Right,
I
right.
don't
No, I
want,
hear you, yeah.
just because it's an interim order,
right.
that you, whatever, if you don't like it, whatever, we're government.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm still-
You can challenge us and
I'm
it's,
still trying to get
he upped it
clear
because
on
of
my
MD.
mind, okay?
Go, Steve!
Larry, in 2019, when the bank was there, the assessed value was 11,951,700. Okay. And then, because the convenient MD building replaced it, you found at that time the value to be 12,228,300. Is that, am I following that right?
Yeah, the information I provided you
Well, yeah.
shows a difference of 870,000.
Mhm.
There was that, did you get the email with the costs associated, right, that showed that there's 5.6 versus 30,
So-
5,600 versus 32?
There was a
and then-
change in the nature of the property between 2019 and 2020.
Only convenient MD.
Right.
Which is a separate building, it's not
Right,
the mall
I
building,
understand.
right.
Is
yeah,
that part of any of these ones tonight? All right,
So
so that's,
Right,
the,
I'll just put a note in there to the extent that that's applicable. Your numbers are
then if
reserved.
we go
Right.
back,
appreciate it,
And just
if we
mark
go
up if
back,
I miss anything.
yeah, well,
Sorry, Steve,
if we
sorry.
go back to the 11,951,700 minus the 1,700, then that ignores the change in value because the convenient MD building was added.
It does ignore it, because that reduction the previous year did not reduce the convenient MD building, which was the bank at the time.
So-
It was just the main mall structure that was
Okay.
reduced in the building value.
So for this 2020 then, if you had paid attention to what, and had known what this board was gonna rule, wouldn't you subtract the 2,001,700 from the 228,300, not the 11,951,700?
I would have subtracted that same amount. Yeah, that amount that was reduced last year would have carried forward. And that would have been the only reduction that would have carried forward.
So what are you gonna tax the building for 2020?
The MD building?
No, this
No,
building.
the MD bill
The
is
mall.
included in this package, right?
Based on the prior year's decision.
Do you have that valuation that you're gonna tax on?
Well, wouldn't it be the 12,228,300 minus the 2,000,001?
Right, that's what I was trying to reconcile with the numbers here.
You wouldn't be coming back with 9.5.
It would be the,
It may go up
The
to
2 million.
2020. But listen, what we're gonna do is allow the board to play out, now, our order will, all these issues, the increase, are all gonna be heard unless, if we need to.
Well, when Larry, supposedly, are you gonna send a revised tax bill because of that conversation here tonight?
it will be a tax abatement for 2 years.
I'll take that.
So the abatement is gonna be the same,
Yes,
Dollar
Right.
amount.
all right?
the tax rate is a little different, but the evaluation for both years would be the same amount.
So I'm trying to help Larry in the sense that nobody's gonna tax him.
9,500,000 stands for 2019, but then you've gotta add something for the MD building for 2020.
Yeah, the total,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, got you. You can talk.
I'm gonna indicate that the
You can talk
issue
now.
of the 220, whatever values that you, after you redo it, are still in play, okay? And you have the right to appeal the numbers, obviously, because the MD building went in, it's just gonna change the numbers slightly.
Right.
And we all know that. But how much, and you can always bring that one
Right.
too.
Yeah, my understanding is, all you're looking to do right now is work the, I'll call it $2 million, $2 million plus abatement into the most current numbers,
Yes.
and everything else is basically stayed and preserved.
Right, and then if we
So-
have to come back, right after you get all issues are in play. Like, you preserved it for the year 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, and 21 going forward, if we have to wait, just file it
The hand-
On that.
and do it,
Well,
I would
just-
indicate, if we can't get to it till the period for that one, I don't want you to lose your ability to challenge each year if you feel you should.
Yeah, that was kind of, and that's partly why we did this year, because we feel like we're sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place. We gotta preserve our rights, and
I'm
so,
just gonna indicate that all years are preserved until we have a ruling, and then we can come back and fix it if we need to.
okay.
Is that fair with everybody? Okay, thanks. All right, move to adjourn, all in favor?
Yep.
All opposed? We're out of here.